Welcome to the third video on solving inference questions on the SAT. We have another passage here which we'll skim over and then we'll solve a question. But true to form, let's instead, because we have a short question, oh my goodness, I'm blanking out here. Short passage, right? We have a short passage, so we should read our question stem first and then read through the passage and try to solve it. So our question stem is this. What does the passage suggest about the shape of the universe? Okay, so it's an inference question because we have the word suggest, and then it's suggesting something about the shape of the universe. So as we read through it, we're going to want to try to figure out what does the passage say about that, the shape of the universe. Everything else doesn't matter so much. Okay, scientists have yet to determine any of the properties of the universe, partly because they have yet to determine its shape. Okay, so we know that scientists don't know what the shape of the universe is. Modern physicists point to three possible geometries: spherical, saddle-shaped, and flat, each of which contains ramifications for the shape of fundamental geometric figures. Okay, so we have something relating to shape and geometry. Okay, for example, on a flat surface, the angles of a triangle sum to 180 degrees, but on a spherical surface, the angles of a triangle sum to greater than 180 degrees. And on a saddle surface, the angles of a triangle sum to fewer than 180 degrees. Thus, scientists might be able to determine the shape of the universe if they could use laser beams to construct a large triangle in space. Okay, so let's see, what do we have here? We've got several choices, obviously. It is related to the properties of space. It is spherical. A large triangle in space would determine it. Scientists have determined its properties. It is triangular, but scientists have yet to determine its angle measurements. Okay, let's start with what could we eliminate, just to break things up a little bit. Well, first thing we could do is we know that it said from the beginning that scientists do not know what the shape of the universe is, so B is clearly out, right? E is also out because, again, it's making a statement, a declarative statement. It is triangular, it is spherical. We don't know those things, okay? What about D? Scientists have determined its properties. Well, no, because they don't know what the shape is, so that's out too. So we're down to either A, it is related to the properties of space, or C, a large triangle in space would determine it. Well, let's think about this. Let's try this one, because they did say something about a large triangle in space. Where was that? It says, thus, the scientists might be able to determine the shape of the universe if they could use laser beams to construct a large triangle in space. Okay, so there's our word there. We wouldn't necessarily figure out what the shape of the universe is by constructing a large triangle. It's only a might. It might work. So C is out, leaving us with A has to be the answer. It is related to the properties of space. Good. Okay, let's move on to question 35. Okay, so now we've got two inference questions right here, 35 and 36. I'm going to tackle both of those, but these are now paired passages. So let's look at this. I would suggest, just for the heck of it, let's read the passages. And remember, whenever you have paired passages, author 1 is going to take one position, and author 2 is going to disagree in some way. Okay? So let's look over what passage 1 says. The international system is a system of anarchy. Therefore, the absence of a supranational authority perpetuates a situation in which only power produces a modicum of order. Okay? So as you go through, you just kind of think about, skip through some of these crazy words: perpetuate, supranational, modicum, but we're talking about power produces order. Okay, unlike citizens, states can neither call the police when they are attacked nor rely on a court for justice and restitution. Thus, states must rely on the threat of force to deter attacks. Far from causing instability or arms races that spiral out of control, as its detractors predicted, deterrence has stabilized the world by stalemating states. The long peace between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War provides a historical example of the stability that deterrence can provide. Okay, so overall this author is stating that deterrence is a good thing. Deterrence creates stability. And by deterrence he means, the threat using, stockpiling weapons, presumably. Okay, what about passage 2? Without a doubt, robust deterrence maintains peace and stability between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Okay, so the author agrees so far with the first passage, but there's always going to be a but, right? There's always going to be, well, it did work, but let's see what he says. This period, called the Long Peace by some scholars, could not have thrived without the mutually assured destruction promised by both states' nuclear arsenals. Today, however, threats to global stability originate not from states, but from sub-state groups like terrorist organizations. Deterrence does not work against such sub-state groups since they have no territory to attack and no physical infrastructure to destroy. Thus, while deterrence has proved historically effective, it cannot be considered a vital strategy to combat the global threats of the 21st century. Okay, so the last sentence is a good clue here too. He agrees with the first author, but while it worked, it has been effective, it can't work now because now it's different. Now we have to deal with terrorist organizations, not states. Okay, so let's see here. So author 2 would most likely characterize author 1's argument as what? Okay, I think we could probably make a prediction here. Something like outdated, perhaps, right? So it worked in the past, but it's not going to work now. Let's see what we have. Logical, but arrogant? No, doesn't say it's arrogant. Persuasive, but patronizing. Okay, for those of you that don't know what patronizing means, let's just put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. Precise, but impersonal. Learned, but there's the word. Outdated. Well-intentioned, but abstruse. Well, I think we have to go with this one, right? He's not saying that, it's arrogant or patronizing or abstruse. He's agreeing with it. It's a learned argument, but it's outdated. It doesn't work anymore. Situations have changed. So D has to be our answer. Okay, let's look at this next one here. The authors of both passages would most likely agree on what? Okay, well, what would they both agree on? Just making a prediction here, we can say that author passage 1 was talking about deterrence keeping the United States and the Soviet Union stable, and passage 2 agrees with that statement. So we could say something about, well, that they both would agree that deterrence worked, at least in some cases. Let's see, that's a little vague, but let's see what we have. 36. And again, when you make a prediction, it doesn't have to be very precise. It's just you want to have a general sense of where you're going to be going with your answer choices. Okay, so let's see. They'd most likely agree that A, deterrence does not work against terrorist organizations. Well, passage 2 says that, but author 1 doesn't say that, so we can rule that one out. Peace and stability should be the goals of international relations policies. Well, maybe, but they're not really talking about not so much the goals of international. In fact, they don't even really bring up international relations policies in those passages. So I think we should put that one out. Deterrence would work against threats by states in the 21st century. Okay. Well, remember, they had agreement about where deterrence would work. They both agreed that deterrence worked against states, right? Just passage 2 is saying that, well, it's not going to work against non-state groups because they don't have territory and no physical infrastructure to destroy. But he or she did agree that deterrence worked against states. So I think this answer would work, right? Deterrence would work against threats by states in the 21st century. Okay, so I think that's the answer, but let's quickly check the other two just to make sure that we didn't go astray. What's this one? D. The establishment of supranational authority would bring peace to the international system. Well, author 2 doesn't say that. Author 1 says something like that. The absence of a supranational authority perpetuates a situation in which only power produces a modicum of order. Yeah, it doesn't say that a supranational authority would bring peace. So that's out. E. States are unlikely to threaten each other in the 21st century. Well, neither of the authors makes that claim. That's pretty far out. So C would have to be our answer. And we'll pause at that.